Elena Vasquez sat in the cold metal chair and watched 12 alien faces stare down at her. The Galaxy Council chamber was huge, with curved walls that reached up into darkness. Each alien species had their own section, and their translators buzzed quietly as they spoke in their own languages. Elena was the only human in the room. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years, but today felt different. Today felt like an ending. Counselor Zethkar stood up from his seat. He was tall and gray with 4 arms that moved like snakes when he talked. His species, the hegemony, controlled the largest part of the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice came out in clicks and whistles, but Elena's earpiece turned it into words she could understand. "Ambassador Vasquez," Zethkar said, "we have called you here to discuss the future of humanity in our galaxy." Elena said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence made aliens uncomfortable. They always felt the need to fill empty air with words. "Your species has been expanding too quickly," continued another counselor. This one looked like a giant insect with green skin. "In 300 years, you have taken 47 worlds. This is unacceptable." "You build weapons instead of art," said a third alien, whose blue skin glowed softly in the dim light. "You fight wars instead of seeking peace. You are dangerous." Elena watched them all speak. Each alien species thought they were better than humans. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had energy weapons that could destroy planets. Their ships were bigger and faster than anything humans had ever built, but they were also weak in ways they did not understand. Admiral Vrexatai stepped forward. He was from the Stellar Dominion, and his people looked like walking trees with silver bark. "We have prepared terms for humanity," he said. "You will accept these terms, or face the consequences." A hologram appeared in the center of the room. Elena read the terms carefully, though she had seen them before. Humanity would be limited to their current 47 worlds. They could not expand further. All human military ships would be given to the Galaxy Council. Earth would pay huge amounts of money to the Council every year for the next 500 years. "These terms will help your species learn to be civilized," Zethkar said. His voice carried the sound that Elena had learned meant he was pleased with himself. "We have dealt with aggressive species before. Some learned to follow our rules. Others did not survive the lesson." Elena looked around the room. Every alien was watching her, waiting for her to beg or cry or ask for mercy. They expected her to be afraid. She was not afraid. "You have 72 hours to accept," Vrextai said. "After that, we will stop all trade with human worlds. Your ships will not be allowed to leave your space. If you resist, we will use force." Elena stood up slowly. She gathered her papers and put them in her bag. The movement was calm and careful, like she was leaving any normal meeting. "Ambassador," Zethkar said, "you have not given us your answer." Elena looked up at him. Her face showed no emotion at all. "I have." She turned and walked toward the door. Her footsteps echoed in the huge chamber. "Wait," called the blue-skinned counselor. "You must respond to our generous offer." Elena stopped, but did not turn around. "Humanity rejects these terms completely. We are ending all diplomatic relations with the Galaxy Council right now." The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Clicks, whistles, buzzes, and roars mixed together as the aliens argued among themselves. Elena kept walking. "You are making a terrible mistake," Zethkar called after her. "We are being patient with you because we believe in peace, but do not think our patience means we are weak." Elena reached the door and put her hand on the control panel. For the first time, she turned back to look at the assembled aliens. "Counselor Zethkar," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. "You are right about one thing. Never mistake patience for weakness." The door slid open with a soft hiss. Elena walked through it without looking back. Behind her, the aliens fell silent. In the hallway outside, Elena's security team was waiting. Captain Rodriguez, her head of security, fell into step beside her. "How did it go?" he asked quietly. "Exactly as we expected," Elena replied. "Send the message to Earth. Tell them the Council has chosen war." As they walked toward the docking bay where Elena's ship waited, she thought about the alien faces she had just left behind. They were so certain they understood humans. They had studied human history, human technology, human culture. They thought they knew everything about Earth and its people. They were wrong. The Galaxy Council believed humans were young and stupid. They saw human weapons and called them primitive. They looked at human ships and laughed at how small they were. They counted human worlds and decided there were too few to matter. What they did not see was what humanity had been building for 300 years. What they did not understand was that humans had been preparing for this day since the moment they first met aliens. The Council thought they were giving humans a choice, but they had already made their own choice 20 years ago, the first time Elena sat in that chamber and watched aliens talk about humans like they were children who needed to be controlled. Elena's ship lifted off from the station an hour later. As they jumped into hyperspace, heading back toward Earth, she opened a secure communication channel. "This is Ambassador Vasquez," she said to the recording system. "Phase 1 is complete. The Galaxy Council has revealed their true intentions. Begin Protocol 7. The message would reach Earth in 6 hours. By then, every human world would know that the time for peace was over. By then, the Galaxy Council would learn what humans really were. They would learn that the most dangerous thing about humans was not their weapons or their ships or their willingness to fight. It was their patience." Counselor Zethkar stood in front of a massive display screen that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked human worlds scattered across a small section of space. Blue dots showed Council territory, which covered most of the galaxy. "Look at this," Zethkar said to the other counselors who had gathered for the emergency meeting. 47 worlds, 12 billion humans total. How can such a small group think they can stand against us?" Admiral Vrextai touched the screen and the display changed. Now it showed human ships and weapons. Their largest warship is barely 2 kilometers long. Our smallest dreadnought is 8 times that size. Their weapons fire metal bullets like ancient weapons from our own past. They have no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no gravity weapons. The other counselors made sounds of agreement. Counselor Hesara, whose people looked like floating jellyfish with crystal bones, drifted closer to the display. "Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours. Why do they think they can resist?" "Because they are young and foolish," said Counselor Drakmore. His people were covered in thick fur and had 6 legs. "Young species always believe they are stronger than they are. We have seen this many times before." Vrextai brought up another display. This one showed human colonies. "Look at their expansion pattern. Random. Wasteful. They take any world they can reach without planning or strategy. This is not the work of a civilized species." "What about their military?" asked Counselor Taywin, whose snake-like body coiled around her chair. "Do they have enough ships to fight us?" "Their entire fleet has maybe 3,000 ships," Vrextai said. "We have over 50,000 ships in our combined fleets. Even if every human ship was a warship, which they are not, we outnumber them 20 to 1. Zethkar walked around the room, his 4 arms moving as he talked. "The humans will realize their mistake soon. When trade stops, their economy will collapse. When they cannot travel between stars, their colonies will suffer. They will beg us to accept them back." "And if they do not?" asked Hesara. "Then we will do what we did to the Karthak Rebellion 300 years ago," Vrextai said. "We will take their ships, occupy their worlds, and teach them how to behave properly." Far away on Earth, President Chen Wei sat in a different kind of meeting. The room was smaller and darker than the council chamber. Around the table sat the leaders of humanity's military and intelligence services. "The council has made their move," President Chen said. "Elena delivered the message perfectly. They think we are afraid." General Sarah Martinez opened a thick folder marked with the highest security classification. "Protocol 7 is ready, Mr. President. We have been preparing for this possibility for 20 years. "Remind me of the basics," President Chen said, though he knew the plan by heart. Dr. James Wright, who ran the Colonial Research Division, stood up and activated a holographic display. Unlike the Council's display, this one showed things the aliens had never seen. "Every human colony was placed for strategic reasons," Dr. Wright said. "The Council thinks we expanded randomly, but each world controls important hyperspace routes, mining areas, or defensive positions. The display showed lines connecting human worlds. Instead of random dots, they formed a careful pattern that controlled access to large parts of space. The Council's maps of hyperspace routes are 20 years old," continued Dr. Wright. "We gave them that information during our first diplomatic meetings. Since then, we have found dozens of new routes they know nothing about." General Martinez added her own display. "Every human merchant ship that traded in Council space was actually an intelligence vessel. Every human student who studied at their universities was gathering information about their technology. Every human diplomat who attended their cultural events was mapping their military and political structures." "For 20 years?" President Chen asked, though he already knew the answer. "For 20 years, General Martinez confirmed. We have complete information on every major Council military base, industrial center, and government facility within 300 light-years of our borders." Captain Lisa Park, who ran the Special Operations Division, spoke up. "Our people are already in position throughout Council space. The Council thinks their security is perfect because they have never had to worry about real enemies before." Dr. Wright brought up another display. This one showed Council technology compared to human technology. "The Council is right that their energy weapons are more advanced than our kinetic weapons. But energy weapons need rare materials and complex manufacturing. Kinetic weapons can be built anywhere. Their ships are faster and more powerful than ours," General Martinez added. "But they are also more complex and harder to repair. Our ships are simpler, but that makes them more reliable and easier to maintain." President Chen looked around the table. "And they have no idea about any of this?" "None," Captain Park said. "They see what we wanted them to see. Simple humans with primitive weapons and random expansion. They never look deeper." "Why would they?" Dr. Wright asked. "They have been the strongest power in the galaxy for thousands of years. No one has ever challenged them successfully. They stopped worrying about real threats long ago." General Martinez stood up and walked to the display. "The Council species have been at peace for centuries. Their military is designed for show, not for fighting. Their soldiers have never faced real combat. Their commanders have never fought a war against equals." "But we have," President Chen said quietly. "We have," General Martinez agreed. "Humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We know how to adapt, how to find weaknesses, how to use an enemy's strength against them." Captain Park activated her own display. "The Council expects us to fight the way they would fight. Big fleets meeting in open space, shooting at each other until one side wins. They expect us to challenge their strengths." "Instead," President Chen asked. "Instead, we go after their weaknesses," Captain Park said. "Their technology is advanced but fragile. Their economy depends on complex supply chains. Their government relies on communication networks that span the galaxy." Dr. Wright smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "The Council thinks they are fighting a primitive species that just got lucky for a few hundred years. They have no idea they are fighting a species that spent thousands of years learning how to survive against impossible odds. "When do we begin?" President Chen asked. "We already have," General Martinez said. "The moment Elena walked out of that council chamber, our people started moving. By the time the council realizes what is happening, it will be too late to stop." President Chen stood up and looked at each person around the table. "The council wanted to teach us about civilization. Instead, they are about to learn about war from the species that invented it." Outside the secure meeting room, Earth looked peaceful and quiet. But across human space, ships were moving in the darkness between stars. Messages were being sent on channels the council did not know existed. People who had spent years pretending to be merchants and students and diplomats were opening hidden equipment and preparing to do what they had been trained for. The Galaxy Council thought they understood humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Admiral Vrextai stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive viewing window, he could see his fleet spread out across space. 200 ships, all pointed toward what his intelligence report said was the main trade route into human space. "Status report," he ordered. Commander Yalkra, his second-in-command, checked her display screen. "All ships in position, Admiral. The blockade is complete. No human ships can pass through this area without our permission." Vrextai felt satisfied. The blockade had been in place for 2 weeks now. Soon the humans would realize they had no choice but to surrender. "What traffic have we intercepted?" he asked. "Very little, sir," Yalkra replied. "A few small human cargo ships carrying basic supplies, some personal messages between colonies, nothing important." Vrextai frowned. He had expected to see more ships. Earth had 47 colonies, and they needed constant trade to survive. Where were all the supply ships? "Perhaps the humans are already feeling the pressure," he said. "They may be conserving their resources." What Vrextai did not know was that the route he was watching was no longer important. The humans had stopped using it months ago, as soon as they knew war was coming. The ships he was intercepting were decoys, carrying exactly the kind of cargo he expected to find. 300 light-years away, Captain Maria Santos piloted her ship through a hyperspace route that appeared on no council map. The new São Paulo looked like a simple cargo vessel, the kind that carried supplies between colonies. But hidden inside its normal-looking hull were sensors and computers more advanced than anything the council had ever seen. "We are approaching the target," her navigator reported. "Good," Maria said. "Begin scanning. I want everything recorded. Ship movements, communication frequencies, weapon placements, shield generators, everything." The target was one of the hegemony's main industrial worlds. It produced the rare metals needed to build the Council's energy weapons. The planet was protected by orbital defense platforms and a patrol fleet of 50 ships. The Council defenders never saw the human ship. It appeared for exactly 17 minutes, scanning everything in the system, then vanished back into hyperspace. By the time the defenders realized something had been there, it was gone. This same scene was happening across the galaxy. Dozens of human ships appeared near Council military bases, industrial centers, and government facilities. They scanned, recorded, and disappeared. The Council's response was always the same: too slow and too confused. Back on Admiral Vrextai's flagship, a communication came in from Council headquarters. "Admiral," the message said, "we are receiving reports of unidentified ships appearing near our facilities throughout the sector. Are any of your ships out of position?" Vrextai checked his fleet roster. "All ships accounted for, Command. None of my vessels are operating outside the blockade area." "Then who are these ships?" Vrextai had no answer. According to his intelligence, all human vessels should be trapped behind his blockade. How could they be appearing in Council space? 3 days later, he got his first real clue about what was happening. "Admiral," Lieutenant Kessatar called from the sensor station. "Human ships approaching our position." How many? Vrextai demanded. 3 vessels, sir. Small cargo ships. Vrextai felt relieved. Finally, some humans had tried to run his blockade. Intercept them. Standard procedure. The council ships moved to surround the human vessels. But as they got closer, something strange happened. The human ships began moving in ways that should have been impossible. They are accelerating at 12 gravities, Kessatar reported. Their crews should be dead. Impossible, Vrextai said. No ship can maintain that acceleration without crushing its crew. But the human ships kept accelerating. They changed direction instantly, without the gradual turns that every other species needed to avoid killing their crews with sudden movement. How are they doing this? Commander Yalkra asked. I do not know, Vrextai admitted. His own ships could barely manage 6 gravities of acceleration, and only for short periods. These human ships were moving like they had no living crew aboard at all. The human ships danced around the council vessels for 10 minutes, clearly showing they could escape any time they wanted. Then they stopped moving and allowed themselves to be captured. When Vrextai's boarding teams searched the human ships, they found normal crews of humans who appeared completely healthy. The ships had no advanced technology that could explain their impossible movements. The humans said nothing when questioned. Reports like this began coming in from across the galaxy. Human ships appeared in places they should not be able to reach. They moved in ways that broke every rule of physics that the Council understood. When captured, the humans gave no explanation for their abilities. Even more disturbing were the ships that were not captured. Council defenders would detect a human vessel, move to intercept it, and find nothing there. Sensors showed the ship had simply vanished without using any hyperspace signature they could recognize. In the Stellar Dominion, Admiral Kethvar commanded the defense of their largest shipyard. His sensors detected a human ship approaching, but when his fighters reached the location, they found empty space. "Where did it go?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his sensor officer replied. "One moment it was there, the next it was gone. No hyperspace activation detected." This happened 17 times in one day. Human ships would appear, scan Dominion facilities, and vanish before defenders could respond. General Martinez sat in Earth's command center, watching reports come in from across the galaxy. On her screens, she could see the locations of every human ship and every council response. "How are our people doing?" President Chen asked. "Better than expected," Martinez replied. "The council's response time is terrible. Their ships are too big and slow to catch our scouts, and they have no idea how we are moving through their territory." "What about the technology demonstration?" "Working perfectly," Martinez said. "The council thinks our ships can ignore inertia. They have no idea we have been using rotating crew compartments and medical support systems for decades." Dr. Wright joined the conversation from his station. "The council's physics knowledge has gaps," he explained. "They never had to develop the technologies we use because their species evolved differently. They do not understand how humans can survive high acceleration." "And the stealth systems?" President Chen asked. "Not stealth," Martinez corrected. "We are using hyperspace routes so close to normal space that their sensors cannot tell the difference. To them, we appear and disappear like ghosts." Captain Park looked up from her intelligence reports. "The Council is starting to panic. Their patrol commanders are requesting reinforcements. Their government is demanding explanations their military cannot provide." "Good," President Chen said. "Confusion is what we want. The more time they spend trying to understand what we are doing, the less time they have to figure out how to stop us." On his flagship, Admiral Vrextai stared at the reports covering his desk. In 2 weeks of blockade, his fleet had accomplished nothing. The humans were moving freely through space his ships were supposed to control. Worse, they seemed to be gathering intelligence on every council facility in the region. "Sir," Commander Yalkra said carefully, "perhaps we should request additional instructions from Council Command." Vrextai did not want to admit failure, but he could not deny what was happening. Send a message to headquarters. Tell them the human capabilities were underestimated. Request permission to expand operations. What he did not say was what he was really thinking. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vrextai was beginning to suspect that the Galaxy Council had made a very serious mistake. The humans were not behaving like a primitive species that had gotten lucky. They were behaving like a species that had planned for this exact situation. And if they had been planning, what else did they know that the Council did not? 3 months after the blockade began, Councillor Zethkar woke up in complete darkness. The power to his capital city had failed during the night. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange shadows on the walls of his residence. His communication device buzzed with an urgent message from the power station chief. "Councillor, all 6 fusion reactors have shut down simultaneously. We have never seen anything like this before." Zethkar dressed quickly and rushed to the power facility. Engineers swarmed around massive machines that had run perfectly for over 200 years. The reactors were not damaged, but they would not restart. "What caused this?" Zethkar demanded. Chief Engineer Malcross looked confused and frightened. "The shutdown was perfectly coordinated, sir. All 6 reactors stopped at exactly the same moment. The computer systems show no errors, no malfunctions, no outside interference." "Then how did this happen?" "We do not know, sir. The reactors appear to have been given shutdown commands from their own control systems, but no one gave those commands." Zethkar stared at the massive machines. 6 fusion reactors powering the largest city on the hegemony homeworld, all stopping at the same instant for no reason anyone could explain. He was not the only council leader dealing with strange problems that day. Admiral Kethvar stood in his shipyard office and watched construction crews floating helplessly around half-built warships. The artificial gravity generators that allowed work on the ships had all failed at the same time. "How long to repair them?" he asked his chief engineer. "That is the problem, sir," the engineer replied. "The generators are not broken. They simply stopped working. All of them, simultaneously across the entire shipyard complex." "Are you telling me that 300 gravity generators built by different companies over the last 50 years all decided to stop working at the exact same moment?" "That is exactly what I am telling you, sir, and we have no idea how to make them start again." Similar reports were coming in from across Council space. Communication networks experienced selective failures that followed no pattern Council technicians could understand. Transportation systems shut down for hours, then restarted themselves. Industrial facilities lost power, but only to specific systems that happened to be crucial for military production. None of these incidents harmed civilians directly, but they sent a clear message. Someone could reach any Council facility and disable anything they chose. Admiral Vrextai studied intelligence reports in his quarters aboard the Eternal Dominion. His blockade fleet had been reinforced twice, but the situation was getting worse instead of better. "Human ships are now operating in every sector," his intelligence officer reported. "They appear anywhere they want, scan our facilities, and disappear before we can respond." "How many ships do they have?" Vrextai asked. "That is the disturbing part, sir. We have tracked at least 500 different human vessels in the last month. According to our intelligence, they only had 3,000 ships total." Vrextai felt cold, despite the ship's heating system. Either our intelligence was completely wrong, or they have been building ships faster than we thought possible. What Vrextai did not know was that he was seeing the same ships over and over again. Human vessels would scan a facility, jump to hyperspace, travel hundreds of light years through routes the Council did not know existed, and appear somewhere else hours later. The Council saw this as evidence of a vast human fleet. In reality, it was evidence of something much worse. Humans could move through space faster and more secretly than the Council had ever imagined possible. Captain Rodriguez commanded the human ship, Recife. Like the other human vessels, it looked like a simple cargo hauler. Unlike council ships, it had been designed specifically for this kind of operation. "Next target?" his navigator asked. "The Zephyrian communication relay on Kepler 438c, Rodriguez replied. "Intelligence wants us to test their response time." The Recife dropped out of hyperspace 3 light minutes from the relay station. Rodriguez watched as his crew worked quickly and quietly. "Scanning complete," his sensor officer reported. "All defensive positions mapped. Communication frequencies recorded. Guard patrol schedules analyzed." "How long did that take?" 4 minutes, sir." Rodriguez smiled. By the time the Zephyrian defenders detected his ship and began moving to intercept it, the Recife would be gone. But this time, they were doing more than just scanning. "Transmit the virus," Rodriguez ordered. His communication officer sent a brief signal toward the relay station. To the Zephyrians, it would look like random background radiation. In reality, it was a carefully designed computer program that would hide in the relay's systems until activated. "Transmission complete. Jumping to hyperspace in 30 seconds. The Recife vanished just as Zephyrian fighters reached its last known position. The defenders found nothing except the fading energy signature of a hyperspace jump, but hidden in the relay station's computers, a small program waited for its activation signal. In the Galaxy Council chamber, an emergency session was taking place. All 12 Council species had representatives present, and none of them looked happy. "The situation is unacceptable," Councillor Drakmore said. His fur was standing on end, a sign of extreme agitation among his people. "Human ships are operating freely throughout our territory while our fleets cannot even find them." "It gets worse," Admiral Vrextai reported. "Analysis of captured human personnel shows they know our military protocols, our communication codes, and details about our facilities that should be classified at the highest levels." Councillor Hessaara drifted nervously around her section of the chamber. "How long have they been gathering this information?" "Based on what we have learned, at least 20 years, Vrextai said. "Every human who has visited Council space during that time appears to have been an intelligence operative." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. 20 years of human merchants, students, diplomats, and tourists, all of them spies. "Every trade negotiation," Zethkar said slowly, "every cultural exchange, every diplomatic meeting, was an intelligence-gathering operation," Vrextai finished. "While we thought we were teaching them about our superior civilization, they were learning everything about our weaknesses." Councillor Taywin coiled tighter around her chair. "What do our military experts recommend?" "That is the problem," Vrextai said. "We are not fighting the enemy we prepared to fight. Our doctrine assumes large fleets meeting in open battle, but the humans are not challenging our fleets. They are attacking our infrastructure with methods we do not understand." Dr. Yali Soran of the Zephyrian Collective spoke up. "I have been analyzing long-range sensor data from our border regions. The humans are building something in deep space, in star systems with no habitable worlds." "What kind of something?" Zethkar asked. "Large structures, possibly industrial facilities or military bases. We cannot get close enough to determine their purpose because human patrols have appeared in those systems." "Patrols?" Councillor Hessaara asked. "How many ships?" "Unknown. Our scouts report human vessels, but when we send larger forces to investigate, the systems appear empty. The humans seem able to hide entire fleets when they choose to." Admiral Vrextai studied the tactical display showing Council territory. Red markers indicated where human activity had been detected. There were hundreds of them, scattered across thousands of light years. "They are not just gathering intelligence," he said. "They are positioning themselves for something larger." "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked. "Look at the pattern," Vrextai said, highlighting specific locations on the map. "Human activity is concentrated around our major industrial centers, military bases, and communication hubs. They are not attacking randomly. They are preparing to attack everything that keeps our civilization running. The room fell silent again as the council members stared at the display. The red markers formed a pattern around every important council facility. How many humans would this require? Drakmor asked. Based on the scope of their operations, Vrextai said, either they have far more ships and personnel than we believed, or they are much more efficient at this kind of warfare than we expected. Or both, Dr. Soran added quietly. Counselor Zethkar stood up and began pacing with all four arms moving in agitation. We offered them peace. We offered them a place in our galaxy under our guidance. Why do they insist on this path? Perhaps, Dr. Soran said carefully, we should consider the possibility that we misunderstood their intentions from the beginning. What do you mean? What if they were never seeking to join our civilization? What if they have been preparing for this conflict since the day we first met them? The chamber fell completely silent. The idea that a primitive species could have planned for war against the Galaxy Council was almost impossible to accept. But the evidence was becoming harder to ignore. Recommendation? Zethkar asked. Admiral Vrextai looked at the tactical display one more time before answering. We need to consider the possibility that this is not a minor rebellion that can be quickly suppressed. The humans appear to have been preparing for large-scale warfare against us for decades. Then what do? We prepare for the kind of war we have not had to fight in 300 years, Vrextai said. A war against an enemy that knows us better than we know them. Outside the chamber, in the cold darkness of space, human ships continued their quiet work. Soon, the Galaxy Council would learn the difference between ruling through strength and surviving through it. 6 months after humanity withdrew from negotiations, Counselor Zethkar called for the most important Galaxy Council session in 300 years. Representatives from all 12 species gathered, but the chamber felt different now. The confident arrogance that had marked their previous meetings was gone. The situation has become critical, Zethkar announced to the assembly. His forearms moved nervously as he spoke. Council space is in chaos. Admiral Vrextai stepped forward to present his report. The proud military commander who had once dismissed human capabilities now looked tired and defeated. In 6 months of conflict, we have achieved none of our objectives, he said. The blockade has failed completely. Human ships move freely throughout our territory. Our military effectiveness has decreased by 60%. Counselor Drakmor's fur was completely flat against his body, a sign of deep shame among his people. How is this possible? Our combined fleets outnumber them 50-1. Numbers mean nothing if you cannot find your enemy, Vrextai replied. The humans do not fight the way we expected them to fight. They do not challenge our fleets directly. Instead, they attack the systems that our civilization depends on. Dr. Yali Soran activated a holographic display that showed the current state of Council space. Red warning symbols covered the map. Critical infrastructure failures are occurring daily, she reported. Power systems, communication networks, transportation hubs, and industrial facilities experience coordinated malfunctions that our technicians cannot explain or prevent. But no direct attacks on civilian populations? Asked Counselor Hesara, who was drifting more nervously than usual. None, Vrextai confirmed. Every human action has been carefully designed to damage our military and economic capabilities without harming civilians. They could have caused massive casualties, but they chose not to. Counselor Taewin uncoiled slightly from her defensive posture. Why would they show such restraint? Because, Dr. Soran said quietly, they are not trying to destroy us. They are trying to teach us something. The chamber fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. Teach us what? Zethkar asked. That we never understood what we were dealing with, Dr. Soran replied. She brought up a new display showing human colonial space. Look at this map with new eyes. We thought their expansion was random and aggressive. Now we can see it was carefully planned over centuries. The display showed how human worlds controlled critical hyperspace routes, resource systems, and strategic positions. What had looked like random expansion was actually the most sophisticated strategic network any species had ever created. Every human colony was placed to support this moment, Dr. Soran continued. They have been preparing for war with us since before we knew they existed. Admiral Vrextai added his own analysis. Our intelligence estimates were completely wrong. We thought they had 3,000 ships. Current data suggests they have at least 10,000 vessels, possibly more. How did our intelligence fail so badly? Drakmor asked. Because they wanted it to fail, Vrextai replied. For 20 years they showed us exactly what they wanted us to see. Primitive weapons, simple ships, random expansion. Meanwhile, they were building the most advanced intelligence network in the galaxy. Dr. Soran brought up another display, this one showing deep space construction projects in human territory. Long-range sensors have detected massive industrial facilities in uninhabited systems. The humans have been building infrastructure we never knew existed. What kind of infrastructure? Zethkar asked, though he was beginning to suspect he did not want to know the answer. Military shipyards, resource processing stations, and what appear to be fortress systems guarding the approaches to Earth, Dr. Soran said. Based on the scale of construction, they have industrial capacity that rivals our own. The chamber erupted in shocked sounds from all 12 species. The idea that humans, whom they had dismissed as primitives, could match the industrial might of the entire Galaxy Council was almost impossible to accept. How is this possible? Counselor Hesara asked. Because we misunderstood their fundamental nature, Dr. Soran replied. We saw a species that had achieved space travel recently and assumed they were young and inexperienced. But humans have been waging war for thousands of years on their homeworld. They know more about conflict, strategy, and survival than any species in the galaxy. Admiral Vrextai nodded grimly. Our military doctrine is based on intimidation and technological superiority. We fight to show our strength. Humans fight to win, regardless of how it looks. And we gave them 20 years to prepare, Zethkar said, his voice filled with the weight of understanding. 20 years to study our weaknesses, map our territory, position their forces, and plan for exactly this scenario, Vrextai confirmed. Dr. Soran activated one final display. This one showed economic data from across Council space. The cost of maintaining our current operations is becoming unsustainable. Military spending has increased by 400%. Industrial production is down 30% due to infrastructure failures. Trade between Council worlds has decreased by 60%. What are you saying? Asked Counselor Drakmor. The humans are winning this war without appearing to fight it at all, Dr. Soran said. They have demonstrated that they can cripple our civilization anytime they choose, while maintaining perfect deniability. No direct attacks, no civilian casualties, no obvious acts of war. The truth hit the assembled counselors like a physical blow. The Galaxy Council, rulers of the galaxy for thousands of years, was being systematically defeated by a species they had tried to treat like children. What do they want? Taewin asked. Admiral Vrextai answered. To be left alone. They never wanted to rule the galaxy or destroy our civilization. They just wanted to expand and grow without interference. And we tried to stop them, Zethkar said. We did more than try to stop them, Dr. Soran said. We tried to control them, limit them, and force them to accept our authority over their destiny. The chamber fell silent as each counselor contemplated the magnitude of their mistake. Recommendations? Zethkar asked finally. Admiral Vrextai looked around the chamber before speaking. We have 3 options. First, we can escalate to full military conflict and risk the destruction of our civilization. Second, We can continue the current situation and watch our economy collapse while human capabilities continue to grow. Third, we can negotiate. Negotiate from what position? Asked Drakmore. We have no leverage. We negotiate from the position of species that have finally learned wisdom, Dr. Soran said. We acknowledge that we misunderstood the situation and ask for terms that allow all species to coexist. At that moment, a communication signal reached the chamber. The message was simple and came from Ambassador Elena Vasquez. Humanity remains open to diplomatic resolution of our current difficulties. We will be waiting in the Kepler 442b system for any council representatives who wish to discuss terms for ending this unfortunate situation. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humanity was inviting the council back to the same negotiating table where they had been dismissed as primitives. But now the humans were the ones with power to dictate terms. Zethkar stood slowly, his 4 arms hanging at his sides in a gesture of defeat. We have learned a hard lesson about the difference between strength and wisdom. What lesson? Asked Counselor Hess-Ara. That the most dangerous enemy is one who appears weak while preparing for war, Zethkar replied. The humans spent 20 years letting us believe we understood them while they learned everything about us. And now? Drakmore asked. Now we discover what terms they are willing to offer, Zethkar said. And we hope that a species powerful enough to defeat us is also wise enough to show mercy. 3 days later, a council diplomatic ship arrived at Kepler 442b. Ambassador Vasquez was waiting in the same chamber where the council had tried to dictate terms to humanity 6 months earlier. But this time, she was not sitting in the defendant's chair. This time, the Galaxy Council was coming to learn what it meant to negotiate with humanity as equals. As the council representatives took their seats, Elena looked around the room and smiled. The patient species that had survived and thrived for thousands of years on a single world had finally shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The council had wanted to teach humanity about civilization. Instead, they had learned that the most civilized thing 2 species could do was respect each other's right to determine their own destiny. And in the end, that was all humanity had ever wanted.